What if I told you that Johnny Depp, the man who has spent decades entertaining us through some of the most unforgettable characters in film history, could step onto a stage in Paris, open his mouth, and in just a few words make an entire audience cry? It sounds like something out of a movie, doesn't it? But this moment was very real. It wasn't scripted. It wasn't choreographed. It wasn't even meant to be dramatic. And yet it became one of those moments that fans, especially those who were there in Paris, still talk about with emotion years later. You see, we often think of Johnny Depp as the actor who hides behind strange costumes, quirky mannerisms, and characters who live outside the ordinary. He's Jack Sparrow with his drunken swagger and sly grin. He's Edward Scissorhands with that tragic silence. He's Willy Wonka with his oddball charm. We know him for transformation, for escaping into someone else. But in this moment, in Paris, none of that was there. There was no mask. No character. No script. It was just Johnny. And what came out of his mouth was something that caught everyone off guard: French. Now, why is that so shocking? Well, think about it. When you go to see an American actor, you expect them to speak in English. You expect them to do the usual routine: thank the fans, thank the crew, smile politely, wave, and leave. But Johnny Depp doesn't do usual. That's never been his way. And so, instead of giving a standard Hollywood speech, he leaned into something personal. He spoke French. And the way he did it mattered. It wasn't just some memorized line. It wasn't stiff or forced. It came out smooth, heartfelt, and surprisingly vulnerable. The audience, packed with French fans who had adored him for decades, wasn't prepared for that. You can imagine the scene. The theater lights dim. The crowd is buzzing. People hold up phones, ready to record a moment they think will be typical. And then, instead of English, they hear their own language spoken with sincerity. A pause falls over the room. People are caught off guard. Some smile. Some lean forward as if to catch every syllable. And some, overwhelmed, begin to cry. It might sound strange if you weren't there. You might be wondering, why would hearing Johnny Depp speak French move people to tears? But here's the thing, it wasn't just about the words themselves. It was about what those words represented. It was about the fact that here was this global superstar, who could have stayed comfortable in his own language, choosing instead to reach across the divide and meet his audience on their ground. That choice, that effort, that respect, that's what touched people. Language has that kind of power. It's more than grammar and vocabulary. It's identity. It's pride. It's belonging. When someone speaks to you in your own language, especially someone who doesn't have to, it feels like a bridge. It feels like they see you, that they value you enough to step out of their comfort zone. And when Johnny Depp did that in Paris, it was like the entire audience collectively felt seen. Now, let's not pretend his French was absolutely perfect. It wasn't. His accent was a little rough. His phrasing wasn't polished like a native speaker. But that actually made it better. Because perfection isn't what moves people, sincerity does. And Johnny's sincerity was unmistakable. In fact, some linguists call this linguistic vulnerability. It's when your little mistakes make you more relatable, more human. It shows effort without arrogance. It shows humility. And humility from someone who has lived most of his life in the bright, unrelenting spotlight? That's rare. Fans have described his French as melodic, almost musical. Not in the sense of technical accuracy, but in the way it carries emotion. His voice slows down. He pauses in the right places. He lets the words breathe. And that's what makes it so moving. It's like he's not just speaking. He's performing, but not as a character, he's performing as himself. Imagine for a moment that you're sitting in that Parisian theater. You've admired Johnny Depp for years. You've followed his career, maybe you've watched his interviews, his trials, his controversies, his comebacks. You've seen him larger than life on screen. And then suddenly, here he is, just a few feet away, speaking directly to you in your own language. That's intimate. That's powerful. That's the kind of thing that etches itself into memory. And it makes you think about the role of language in human connection. Because let's be honest, we've all had a moment, even in everyday life, when someone spoke to us in a way that felt personal and it changed the way we saw them. Maybe it was a stranger on a trip who tried to greet you in your native language. Maybe it was a colleague who made the effort to say your name correctly. Maybe it was a friend who learned a phrase just to make you smile. Those little things matter more than we realize. And when you multiply that feeling by the energy of a Parisian crowd and the fame of someone like Johnny Depp, it becomes unforgettable. Now, this wasn't just a one-time thing for Johnny. His connection to France runs deeper. He lived there for years. He raised a family there. His daughter, Lily Rose Depp, grew up bilingual. French culture shaped parts of who he is. And when he speaks the language, even imperfectly, it feels genuine because it comes from lived experience, not just a phrasebook. He's not performing for applause. He's communicating from the heart. And that difference is everything. There's a lesson in this for all of us. You don't have to be a movie star to use language as a bridge. Even a small effort can change the way people see you. Imagine traveling abroad and learning just 3 or 4 phrases in the local language. You don't have to hold a conversation. You don't have to be fluent. Just showing that you care enough to try, saying, thank you, saying, I'm honored, saying, you mean a lot, that's enough to create warmth. That's enough to break down barriers. And here's the beautiful irony, sometimes, when you try to be perfect, people feel a little distance. But when you're a little flawed, when you stumble over a word or laugh at your own accent, that's when people open up. Because perfection feels distant. Vulnerability feels close. And Johnny Depp, for all his fame and mystery, allowed himself to be vulnerable on that stage. That's why it mattered. I think about how many celebrities stand on stages and deliver polished lines. It's not that they don't care. It's just that they play it safe. They do what's expected. But Johnny didn't play it safe. He took a chance. He risked being imperfect. And in doing so, he gave the audience something real. That's why they cried. Not because of the words themselves, but because they knew those words came from a place of respect. Some fans even described the experience as hearing a song. Not a complicated one. Not one with layers of instruments or dazzling production. Just a simple, heartfelt melody that you hum without even realizing it. That's what Johnny's French sounded like to them. Simple. Imperfect. But unforgettable. And let's be honest, whoever expected Captain Jack Sparrow to transform into a Parisian poet? That's the kind of twist you don't see coming. And yet, that's Johnny Depp in a nutshell. He thrives in the unexpected. He lives in those moments where everyone assumes one thing and he gives them another. That's why people remain fascinated by him after all these years. At the beginning, I told you that he brought Paris to tears with just a few words. And maybe you doubted that. Maybe you thought, really? Just words? But now you understand. It's never just words. It's the weight they carry. It's the history behind them. It's the courage to step outside the familiar. It's the respect shown through effort. And it's the vulnerability that makes us lean in closer instead of stepping back. So here's where I'll turn the question to you. What's one language you've always wanted to learn? Maybe it's French, because you've dreamed of strolling along the Seine and ordering a croissant in perfect Parisian style. Maybe it's Spanish, because it opens doors to entire continents of culture and connection. Maybe it's Japanese, because of your love for anime, or Arabic, because of its poetry and rhythm. Whatever it is, think about why it calls to you. Because the truth is, language isn't just about communication. It's about connection. And connection is what we're all really looking for. That's what Johnny Depp reminded us of in Paris. He reminded us that no matter how famous you are, no matter how many blockbusters you've made, no matter how many stages you've stood on, what matters most is authenticity. What matters most is the courage to be vulnerable. What matters most is showing respect in a way people can feel. So next time you think about language, don't think about perfection. Think about connection. Because if Johnny Depp can move a room full of people to tears with imperfect French, imagine what you can do with just a little effort in your own life. And if this story touched you, stick around. There's more to discover. More hidden talents. More unexpected moments. More lessons hidden in the life of a man who has always lived between the lines. And until then, remember this, sometimes the smallest words carry the biggest weight.